get started. Now, ZENworks Configuration Management is the solution to help you get a hold of the full lifecycle management of your servers and your workstation. What's significant about this release is that this now brings all of the ZENworks technologies for managing under one solution, under one management console. So in this solution, whether you are a Windows box or a Linux box, you have full management. So what I can do to Windows workstations and servers, I can also do to your Linux, your SLES, and your Red Hat boxes, and again, all managed inside of the same console. This solution includes everything that you need to do your operating system imaging. If you want to move a machine from XP to XP, or take an XP to Windows 7, or Windows 7 to Windows 7, if you want to go image your Red Hat or your SLED desktops and your SLED servers, the solution also has all of those pieces necessary where you can do the imaging that you require. And the imaging also, the tools are available in the solution for you to construct universal images, like to have one XP image that can hit all of your laptops and your desktops without having to build an image for every model type and every application that you might actually have. In Windows 7, also, you can build the universal image and shoot that out to your hardware types. The solution includes everything you need to get the software out to your users, to make sure that we've got the right software for the right devices and users. And with that also, you have everything that you need to package up these applications and get these applications to install themselves and allow your users to reinstall them if necessary. We can reconfigure applications, we can update applications, and we can remove applications. All of those bundle management type operations are included in the solution. We have everything that you need in the solution to do remote management. That means remote control, remote view, remote FTP or execute, giving you the ability to be able to remotely manage these devices without having to physically be in front of them. You have everything that you need to track the hardware and the software inventory of all these different types of devices. You'll know about the BIOS, the hard drive controllers, the video cards, and you'll know what software is installed in these devices. You'll be able to run reports accordingly, run reports that are tailored to your needs, and schedule these reports as you need to. And lastly, all this technology that I'm telling you about, all these solutions, can be done whether the device is connected or disconnected. Now, naturally, some operations, like sending my inventory to the server, I need to have a connection at that point. But again, if I need to reinstall applications, the user can be completely disconnected, and we can configure those applications to allow them to reinstall them off the local hard drive, even if they don't have any kind of connections to the servers. You can even let users carry a DVD around that through a couple of menu options, they're able to re-image their laptop by booting off of that DVD and answering a few questions, so that if there was a disaster when they're out on the road, they could put the system right back to the way that you had configured it originally. Now, everything I just ran through very quickly, this is considered ZCM standard. It's the core ZENworks configuration management. There are some further enhancement pieces that you can add to the solution. And the first one is what we call our software usage and license management. This is ZENworks Asset Management add-on to it. I told you already that you have in the core system your ability to do hardware and software inventory. So it will show you all that information. But what this does is take it a step farther. For example, in the core system, I can tell you that you've got 3,000 copies of Office 2007 Professional out on your systems. And then that's good information. I need to know that. But with this, now I can show you that, yes, you've got 3,000 copies, but only 400 machines have actually fired up Word in the last 90 days, and only 200 are actually using Access. This is where usage comes in. Not only can I show you counts, but I can show you what's actually being usage, because with that kind of information, maybe it's not necessary to buy that many copies for all those. Maybe we'll deploy another productivity suite and just buy the copies that we need. In addition to that, I can import your purchase records and your contracts, and I can show you, look, here's how much you bought, Here's how much is being installed out there, and here's how much is actually being used. And with that kind of information, you have everything that you need to make sound software purchasing decisions with the vendors. Now, another additional piece that can be included is our Windows Patch Management. This will show you, of all your systems that are being managed, what patches for Microsoft and OS and products that you have and which ones you don't have. And from this interface, you can schedule these, target the systems, deploy them in a controlled manner that you specify. You can baseline these so that if they get removed or if a machine gets re-imaged and added to the system, if they're missing these patches, they'll automatically be deployed and put into place on these systems. In addition to Microsoft, this covers about 17 to 20 other different vendors, virus vendors, Adobe, Apple. It's all tossed in there, and they will also show you the patches that you have and that you don't have on your systems and give you the same mechanism for deployment. And then lastly here, we have, sorry, went too far. Lastly, we have an add-on piece called our Endpoint Security Management. This enhances the security policies that you can put on your systems to allow you to have USB device control. You can determine exactly what USB devices and what kind of mass storage can actually be plugged into your systems. Do they have read-only to it? Can they actually write to it? You can control what wireless devices, what SSIDs they can and cannot attach to. You can have a firewall activated at the driver level. You can determine if you want to go stateful or what protocols they can actually use. You can control what applications they can and cannot use. Control VPN access. If they reach out to the internet, I can have them automatically get prompted to set up their VPN tunnel and so forth. The strength of this is that this can actually happen to the devices based on where they are located. Like, for example, when the system detects that you're in your main office, then firewall doesn't turn on, and neither does VPN enforcement, and maybe other application controls don't come into place. But if I see that you're at Starbucks or in a central location or a place that I'm not controlling, I can have these policies then suddenly turn on. And the user doesn't have to click anything. This can all be set up where just based on locations, these policies can turn themselves on and turn themselves back off. And just a quick kind of architecture view of what the solution looks like is you have one or more primary servers that talk to a database. And this database can be the Sybase or Microsoft SQL or an Oracle. The agents are deployed to your managed devices, whether they be Windows or Linux. And these agents communicate with these primaries over 443. It's HTTPS. They get their configurations. They get their applications and their bundles and their policies. And these are updated. We also have the ability to do a read-only connection to some type of LDAP backend, such as Active Directory and or eDirectory, so that in addition to managing devices, I can also allow you to have management at the user level. For example, I could give a container in your Active Directory user source. I could give a container Adobe Acrobat or maybe an Office suite or something like that. So again, you can manage both the devices and still consume via read-only connection any user source that you want to set up. Now, I ran through this very quickly. I just want to exit out of this and kind of go into the console here and let you see what this kind of looks like. Okay, what you're looking at now is a Firefox browser here. And what I'm going to show you is after you've authenticated to this solution, this front screen here kind of gives you a quick matrix of how many machines I'm managing, which ones are giving me warning messages, which ones are giving me error messages. And you can see my environment's not colossally big. I've got 2 servers and 9 workstations in it. As you deploy the agents, they're going to register with the system, and they're going to be divided as either a server or a workstation. You can then make your own subfolders and set rules about how they're sorted. And in my example, I just kind of did it by city. And so I divided it up here, let's go into my Houston folder. I've got my system sitting right here. You can see I've got an assortment of Windows 7 64-bit and Windows XP 32-bit. Let's go into the details of this particular device here. I can see its IP address, when's the last time it checked in. I can see the user that's currently logged into it here, ordinary. Messages will appear below. If you look off to the side here, you can see all the different tasks that I can do to this particular machine. I can wake it up, force a refresh or an inventory scan. I can apply an image to it from here or take an image of it as I need to. I can also remote control it. So I'm going to hit it by IP address, and we can remote control in. And you should be seeing here, I'm just kind of remoted into this machine. It pops open a separate window. And this is an example of a managed machine. I've got some icons on the desktop here. If I look at my Start menu, again, I've applied group policies to this system for this user. So you see that control panel is not there. I've also taken away a lot of the programs out of here. But as you can see up here, I've got a series of folders with icons for my users. I'm showing you an example of how, when you're managing a device, you can fully manage it, and you should manage all of the applications as well. So if the user needs Adobe Reader, they can click on the icon, and if Adobe's already installed, then Adobe launches in this case. If my user had something wrong and wanted to reinstall Adobe, they could right-click here and do a verify, and this will pull Adobe back down or install it from whatever source that I told it, and reinstall Adobe for my user and thus relaunch it as necessary. You can see that I can show the Office in here that they can run. They've got Visio and a few accessories here. Again, all of these applications have the intelligence of how to install themselves, how to reinstall themselves and remove themselves if I want to enable that. These applications can be native installations like I'm showing you here. They could be virtual applications. And if those of you, if you were attending that last session, we talked about application virtualization. Most certainly, that can be leveraged here in the solution. As you can see right there, I've reinstalled Adobe and it's launched, and it's also given me an irritating prompt. There we go. Something else that's kind of interesting here is you can see that I've got IE on the desktop here, but this little Z indicates that I'm actually controlling it from the system. The reason I do this with IE is that it's basically just a shortcut to launch the native IE for my users. But by controlling this icon here, I can actually do other things that might be necessary for my users, such as snapping in a trusted site or a proxy configuration or any other settings that I want to do to IE, or maybe I want to snap in Silverlight for my users. By consuming the icon for them there, they actually do the work for me. And thus, when they launch IE, I might pop up a message that says, hey, hang on just a second, I'm configuring this. And then after it's done, it'll just run from them. Now, this user that's logged in is not an administrator. If I go into properties there, you can see that it gets restricted because of my group policies. But through a remote control session, I'm able to elevate my rights and get into things that this user may or may not have access to do, such as regedit, or if I want to run a control panel applet, like appwiz.cpl, for example. See, my user doesn't even have the ability to get into this, but again, through the remote control, I have elevated privileges, and I can look and do things that are whatever I need to help work on this machine. I can also collaborate. I can invite other administrators. If I'm having trouble, I can reach out, call you and say, hey, can you join this session with me? And you can jump in here and I can delegate control to you, and we can both try to figure out what's going on. So anyway, this is just a quick view of remote controlling machine and what you can do. I'm now back in the main console here looking at this device. From this tab here, I can quickly look at its inventory, and I can see the details for this particular machine, all of its hardware, all the software that's installed on this device. Scrolling down here, I can see all the patches and what dates they were put on this machine. If I want to get a quick list of show me all the machines that have this particular IDE controller, I can click on it. It tells me there's 9 other machines, or what are those machines. and here they are. Anything that I'm looking at in the reporting screen, I can export out to any of these common formats here if I needed to massage that or hand this report off to somebody. If I look at my relationships for this particular device, I can see what's directly assigned to it. You can see here are the Office bundles that are directly assigned, and I can see what's inherited. So based on being in the Houston folder, they're getting Adobe Reader, Visio, and that Internet icon, and you can see they're also getting those standard accessories there. All right. Let's drill out here a little bit. Right here, you're looking at my user source that I'm connected to. In my case, it happens to be eDirectory, but this could just as easily be AD. And you can see how I've got a full view here of my groups and my containers, and there and thus I can make assignments at any one of these levels, just like I can at the device level. I quickly jump into policies here. I'll go into a folder here that I made called Standard Users. These are two examples of policies that I can set up and assign to my machines or my users. As you can see here, I've got a group policy, and I'm just consuming standard Microsoft group policies and assigning it to my users or my devices. And in this case, I'm doing it to all the Houston folder. Automatically gets this particular group policy. And my standard user, DOU, this stands for Dynamic Local User. This allows me to use my user source, and even if the machine is not a member of the domain, this will take my user source credentials, and if they're valid, it will automatically create the user and put them, in this case, in the users group on the local Microsoft machine, or I could put them in Power User, or I can make them administrators. So again, without the machines being in any kind of domain, I still have full access to give the user access so that they can get on and actually use the machine. Quickly, some other examples of Windows configuration policies that we can make are we can control printers. I can leverage iPrint, which is a Novell technology for sending down an HTTP printer with the driver, or I can leverage Microsoft SMB printers, where you can go ahead and pre-configure that setup for the machine. So again, I can have printers follow users around the network. When they log in, these printers are automatically set up, or I can set up printers for sets of machines. So if you go into this lab, it's automatically got these 3 printers set up so that you can print from any device. I can control local file rights. We can do power management policies about how you want the battery to work and screensaver, all that kind of stuff, and so forth there. So that's just a quick run through on policies. Bundles, any type of action that I want to do to a machine is defined as a bundle. And as you can see here, I've done several folders just to kind of group them up. Here's that Adobe that I showed you. Here's the icon that the user will see and any other information that I want the user to know. Here's a quick matrix that you can see the bundle status for Adobe, how many machines it's been targeted to and it's effective, how many devices are pending as far as the deployment, getting it installed, and how many were successful, and then how many launches and failures that I've had. If I had a failure or any of these numbers are clicked through, like there's the 6 successful machines that have successfully launched Adobe. If I had a failure, you could drill right in there and see which machines had failed and then take action appropriately. Relationships is how I can actually give this out to my users. I can set additional system requirements that need to be in place for you to actually get Adobe. And then the actions break down on what do you want to do during the install of this. I want to copy a directory, then I want to install Adobe Reader. And there's more details in here. I like to use variables so that I can pull it from any of these sources. So my app server variable there can be defined at the folder level. So based on what folder you're in, that variable is going to mean something different to you. And then once it's installed, how do I launch it? Notice with ZENworks, I can have different launch commands for different platforms. I can even throw in a Linux launch command so that I can have this one bundle be able to hit you on whatever platform that you're running on. For example, on my Windows 7, my launch command has got the x86 in here, and I'm telling it, hey, this is only valid for if you happen to be on a Windows 7 device. So this allows me to build one bundle and be able to hit whatever architecture or whatever platform that you're currently supporting without having to make different copies or make different things across the board there. Bundles can also be images. As you can see, I've got a couple of examples here. I've got a Windows 7 sysprep that I can aim at devices, and I've got a base XP image. So again, I can flip machines back and forth, assuming they can handle Windows 7, as I need to, just by assigning this bundle and then triggering the machine to say, hey, next time you boot, this is an imaging bundle that I need you to actually use. Now, if I move here quickly to reports, this is how I can quickly get a device list. This is an example of the canned reports, like give me a quick rundown on all my devices by manufacturer and model. Now, mine aren't very interesting because they all happen to be VMs. But again, I can click on that 9. There's those, and I can export this out as I need to. We can look at software applications, like give me a quick rundown on Microsoft products. So here it's showing me that I've got 5 machines running Windows 7, 64-bit, got 4 on XP here. Here's all my Office suites, 3, 1, and 2, and then it breaks it down by component. And again, I can drill into any of these numbers to get, give me more specifics about those types of machines. You can also make your own custom reports and give your users the ability to make their own folders. I mean, and when I say users, I meant other administrators that want to come in here and do this. So let's make a report here very quickly. So I give it some classy name here. I want to report about devices and their attributes. So let's see, I've got machine name as a column. How about megahertz speed might be interesting. IP address is always useful. And how about if we go with system product, which is basically the chassis name to it. Criteria is, how about let's do machine name starts with an H, and I'm cheating here a little bit because I know I should get hits on this. So I'm going to save this. So here's my report. I can schedule this to run at a given time, like once a day or once a week, and then email me the results. In our case here, let's just go ahead and run it. And there's my 4 columns. I can edit this, fix it, or go ahead and export it as I need to, but I'm just showing you that you can quickly construct reports in here and get the information out. You also are entitled to use the business objects reporting. And this is another interface that will open up here, and let me just show you some predefined reports. Let's just look at patches, for example. And what's interesting about this is how you can make more intricate reports, like I want to see everything that's deployed and critical for patches, and we'll run that query. And this will allow me to do nice little pie charts, do my own little columns, custom tables, save this, and export this. Again, just to kind of give you a more reporting interface. This is all drag and drop. It shows you all the schema on one side and allows you to kind of construct these in whatever way that you feel necessary. Okay, now I'm back to the main interface. Very quickly, I want to show you that you also have the ability to define other administrators that can have access to this system and define what rights they have. In my case here, I set up R. Nuri. She can use her same ID and password from eDirectory to access this control. And inside of here, I can also define what rights that she has. Can she do remote control? Can she do just reporting rights? Can she manage the devices? Can she do bundle operations? You can define roles and then assign these administrators these different roles so that they can't just do everything when they come in here. They can only do these particular pieces. Also, I wanted to show you locations. Locations can be set up here, and this defines, you set up your network segments, by a gateway or a DNS or DHCP server. There's lots of criteria, like I set up my Houston office, and then I actually assign them to locations that I define. You have a default unknown, which covers everything outside of what you define here. And this is how I can actually have bundles show up, hey, when you're in Houston, then this bundle will show up. If you're not in Houston, it won't. Or if you're in the unknown, these are different things that are going to actually be available to you. Now, everything that I just ran through very quickly there was showing you the core ZENworks configuration management. All that I showed you, if you just had the standard ZCM, you're entitled to use all those pieces that I just showed. Now I'm going to move into one add-on piece. We'll kind of take it one at a time. The first one is going to be the patch management. With patch management, in this view, this is what I was telling you about how I can see all of the patches, how many I've got patched, and how many machines I don't have patched. And you can see here I'm showing you Microsoft, and you can see some Adobe and some Apple in here. If I want to filter on that, hey, just show me the Microsoft here, please. And search. So now it's just showing me Microsoft patches, based on either XP or Windows 7. I can check these off and then deploy these out to my users. Now, it will give me other options about, hey, when do I want to schedule this? Do I want to let the user snooze it? Do I want to let them, be notified that I'm doing this? Do I want to automatically reboot? All of these options are done for you right here. And again, this is like a nice little dashboard here that you can kind of see where you are as far as compliance. If a patch is not important to you, you can check it off and disable it so that it will come out of your charts. So as you can see, I'm not doing real great on my baseline here, but this kind of just shows me where I stand as far as my patch management. Now also, we have the asset management add-on. This was the piece that I showed you in addition to the hardware and software inventory. I can do things like track your purchase records, where I can, here's some purchase records. This is tracking what I've bought and what are the quantities of that. I can then also look at my usage about what applications are being used based on device or product or by user, and I can do reports against that. And also I can do license compliancy reports, such as this one right here. So here's a report that's showing me I've got my Office 2007, I got one installed, or I bought one copy, I've got 3 installed, so I am under licensed by 2. So that's an action item. And you can see that those 3 that are actually out there are actually being used. But look at my Office Professional 2010. I bought 4 copies of it, but only 2 are actually detected out on the network, and they're not even being used. Again, another action item that I need to look at. And you can see, the same kind of stuff for Visio and my other suites here. So again, you can define, through your purchase records and through your usage, and define these reports about how you want to look at compliance and run these and have the information that you need when you're talking to the vendors about your license renewals. Okay. Last piece, wanted to show you here quickly. Well, you've also got contracts in here as well. Let me just show you that quickly. So you can define your contracts, put in your information about your purchases, about when they renew, and this can notify you in your email. I can attach a PDF or a TIFF scan copy of the actual contract in here as well so that I can look at it and review it. The relationships, I can actually relate those license records that I was just showing you into this contract so that I know, which objects actually fall up under this. And again, this will make calculations, based on what I've got in here and what's the annualized cost and all that kind of stuff. And my service level agreements, my leasing information, all this can be tracked in here as well. And this can be software and this can be physical assets as well, such as your printers, so that you can track, lease times on those and on your physical workstations. Those lease times can be tracked in here and you can be notified that as well. Okay. I wanted to show you on the Endpoint Security. This is another add-on piece here. This shows up in here as policies. And this is a quick example of all the different types of policies that you can make. First one here being, here's my firewall, about how I can set how I want my firewall to act. Do I set it all to stateful? What protocols do I want it to go through? Here's my USB policy. I can define what USB devices they can actually use. And these policies can be applied at, any level in the hierarchy. I mean, I can make, a global policy that applies to all and then managed by exception, or I can make it kind of loose and then lock it down, as you get lower down in my folder structure. And again, these policies can take effect based on locations. When you're in the Houston office, they might turn on. When you're in the unknown, they might do something differently. You can also do folder level encryption. This is not full disk encryption. That will come later with a later release. Right now you can define a folder, and it's called the safe harbor. And any files or folders that they define inside or put inside there is automatically encrypted. Anything they take out of it is automatically decrypted. And that encryption can carry over to the USB devices themselves. So what I have done here is just quickly, I need to take a drink here in a minute because I've talked nonstop, quickly given you a taste of ZENworks 11 configuration management. I've shown you the core, and I have shown you 3 add-on pieces to it, namely the patch management, the asset management, and the endpoint security management. The whole purpose of this is to give you a single management overview of all of your endpoint devices to allow you a scalable and reliable technology where you can manage these, but most importantly, to give you the flexibility to make changes from a central point without you having to visit all of these systems. If any of you are into endpoint management, you know that things happen every day. Every day is a new adventure. We've got new updates. We've got new systems that need to be imaged, or we've got changes that have to happen in security. This gives you the ability to make those changes and to implement them and have them enforced on these endpoint devices. And with that, I'm going to take a drink of water, and if you could help me out, if we have any questions in there, I'd like to answer them. Let me put my email address back up there, because certainly, as you have more questions about this, or if we need to kind of slow down and go through these things in more detail, certainly myself or a peer, just use me as a resource on this. We can certainly schedule a time and do that. With that, I thank you very much. And Q, if you want to let me know if we have any questions there.
Yeah, it looks like we have quite a few that have come across. So we have one that says, could we have a policy AD and ZCM at the same time?
And I assume that question is talking about group policies. And the answer is yes. You may have ZCM do group policies, and those can be combined with the AD. I would encourage you, though, to pick one system or the other, because it's just it can be confusing if you're applying both of them at the same time to know which one's doing it. So I would leverage either let ZCM do it, or, and I'm just talking about group policies in, just that one aspect of it. Let AD do it or let ZCM do it. But yes, I mean, they both can do it.
And then the next one is, could we put in the inventory object manually where we could not install a ZCM agent?
You can. These can just be imported from a file. However, I would encourage you to use the agent. The agent actually on the inventory side comes in 2 flavors. There is an inventory-only agent. Like if you don't really manage those boxes, or you're not, in charge of remote control and sending the apps, we can put just the inventory only, and it will report in, and we can just, track it as an asset on there. Also, if you need to deploy the full agent out there, you can actually restrict what pieces of the agent are actually implemented. Like, if I'm not in charge of imaging it, well, I can disable that part of the agent. Or if I don't want to do remote control, I can disable that piece as well. And again, it's a way that you can just have inventory only and maybe bundle management, or just the pieces that you want.
Okay. The next one is, for DLU, must the Novell client be installed?
And the answer is no. And when he says DLU, we're talking about dynamic local user. That was that concept that I was showing you about how I could just look at your user source and give you in a local account access to that machine, both with Windows 7 and XP. But no, with ZENworks 11, the client is not required. And as a matter of fact, that machine I was on, I was just showing you there, was using DLU, and that did not have the Novell client on it. And no, it was not a member of the domain either.
Okay. The next one is, are there more than 3 management add-ons?
Okay, so we're talking about currently the add-ons are just those 3 that I managed. And to the, just thinking ahead. Actually, there are some other partner add-ons that come to mind. I'm showing you the 3 add-ons that Novell offers. So there are other partners that have written things into this console.
And then are there differences or advantages of building ZCM on Linux servers versus Windows servers?
I have not seen an advantage as far as performance from going either way. I actually have customers that are running it on both platforms as their primary. You know, they've got a couple of Windows and got a couple of SLEDs on there. So I would encourage you to use the platform that you feel most comfortable with managing it from a server side. But again, you not really any performance difference on that.
Okay, and then we had another question here. What are the major differences between ZCM 11 and 10? And then how do you migrate from 10.3 to 11? So 2 questions in there.
Let me take the migration one first. It is you're going to need the media, so it's not a system update that you just download for it. I mean, it's a media upgrade that you will insert. You will update your primary service to 11 first, and then then we can roll to the agents, on a schedule or on a schedule that you do, and you'll do satellites first before we do the agents. But anyway, so that's migration. It's a media-based. As far as the main differences, just to quickly enumerate them, this solution has the endpoint security piece into it, because that used to be a separate solution. With 11, that's combined now. It also adds all the Linux. The ZENworks Linux management is all built into here in 11. As far as bundle additions, you have the ability now to do action level requirements. They've added the location-based awareness. The administrative groups can now be consumed as far as setting up the roles. I don't have to do them individually now. There's actually quite a list. I'm just kind of hitting the highlights very quickly of what 11 brings to the table. It's mainly about integration.
Okay. Then another question about migration is when will they be able to do a ZCM 10.3.3 to ZCM 11.1?
Okay, that is 11.1 is slated, and again, that's they are giving us a rough estimate end of July. So we're a couple of months out. At that time, 10.3.3 can go to 11, but it's 11.1.
Okay, perfect. And then the next one is, does ZCM 11 require a 64-bit OS to run on?
It does not. However, I would highly recommend, whatever backend, like the backend question a minute ago was either Windows or Linux, whatever backend you do, go 64-bit. I mean, we're at 64-bit. There's architectures that can fully leverage that. ZENworks 11 is all, 64-bit code. To get the most out of it, I would say, when you're going to go with primaries, whatever platform architecture you choose, server hardware you choose, go 64-bit.
Okay. And then there was a question, and we may not be able to address this in this, but it says, looking at the price list, it appears that Linux Asset Management is a separate license from Windows Asset Management. Is that really the case?
Well, yeah, and I'm just a technical guy, so I can't know the price list here. However, there are different add-ons outside of how you want to patch the Linux side. Like in my example, I didn't go into all that, but I was leveraging my subscription of SLEDs patching, which can be leveraged inside of this, to download my catalogs and such. However, there is third-party add-ons that can give you other ways that you can patch and track the assets, and those are separate add-on pieces to it. However, again, like everything I showed you is just using the base core where I can, manage your Linux and your Windows, track the hardware and software inventory. The patch is an add-on. The patch management that I showed you in here was specific to Windows, and Windows products and the, other vendors, but those were Windows add-ons. The Linux patching, can be leveraged through your SLEDs, through they call it, the nu.novell.com, the Novell update, or through other mechanisms. And that's kind of a long-winded answer. But, yes, if you have licensing questions, please send those to me, and I will get you an appropriate resource on that.
Okay. Looks like we have time for a couple more questions. another migration question looks like it. It says, how do you go from ZCM 10.x on SLES 10 to ZCM 11 on SLES 11?
Well, SLES 10, SP3 is actually supported. So you could, if you're not at SP3 on 10, you could go to that service pack and then put 11 on there. You don't necessarily have to go to SLES 11 to go to ZCM 11. Otherwise, you would just follow the path upgrade for the operating system. You know, if you wanted to go to SLES 11, just do that path upgrade over your 10. Otherwise, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's a media upgrade on there. You're going to need to download the ISO, mount that, and then perform the upgrade like that.
Okay, great. It looks like all the questions for now. Unless there's anyone else, you feel free to put those in. Oh, here's one more. VMware ESXi supported?
Yes, it is. You certainly can run these in virtual machines, but kind of like the last presenter was saying is just, you know, I caution you. I mean, just know that depending on how you've got the ESX set up, I mean, you can have, I mean, you have to watch the performance on it. You know, when we share up boxes on virtual stuff like that, we are sharing, you know, all those physical resources. So just, you know, knowing all that, which a lot of people are using that, we understand that. But yes, certainly it is supported.